Well, we'd like to welcome you back to our studio here in Texas. We apologize for not being here last week. We missed you guys. I hope you missed us. We always enjoy this time. But also I'd like to apologize if our sound and our picture aren't where they need to be. If we don't look quite right, don't try to adjust your TV screen. Wait a minute, your computer screen. It's probably us. But hopefully the content of what we have to say will make up for any lack in the audio or the video. We're just going to have a good time, one way or the other. But first of all, I'd like to say the reason we weren't here last week is we were all having a good time, I must admit. But tell me, when don't we have a good time?
We always have a good time.
Yeah, wherever we are, whatever we do. It's just part of the joy of living and enjoying. But we were off in West Texas, not the city of West, who we did go through there. We were unable to see any of the things that occurred there. I'm sure most have heard about the tragedy that happened in the city of West Texas, and hopefully there's been much prayer go up concerning the folks there. It's a horrible explosion, but anyway, we went farther than that. We went a few hundred miles past that city, and mostly visited with family. We spent some time with my wife's dad, who is a geophysicist. He owns his own ranch. Sounds very Texas. It may sound a little more than actually it is, but I bring that up because it's where I want to start the conversation. It has a lot of meaning to me personally, a lot of history that I think is very significant. One thing is I got to enjoy some conversation with your dad, and it brought up a past that I think needs to be known, because here at New Covenant Group, we're all about change for the better. We see some things that we recognize, some things that could be a lot better for all people, and we being theists, being those who have been involved, have been, let me use this term, were involved in church for many years. And when we were there at your dad's ranch, it brought up memories of time gone by. Just to get to the point, really a lot of time wasted. Because I recall the time when I was in college. And this has been more years ago than I would like to admit, but it's okay. Back in the early 70s, and I was studying geology. And as I was talking to your dad about what he does and what he knows about the oil business and what's going on right now at his ranch, they're looking for oil. They're surveying it, they're doing the what do you call it, seismic, taking the seismic readings and making the maps, which is what he actually did as a geophysicist. And, when I go back all those years, that's been what, 73 to now, how many years is that, 40? I still remember a lot of the things I learned, and I realized, well, let me get to the point. At that time, I quit school because, get this, because of religion. I got saved, so to speak. And God began to take me another direction. And I began to be a student of the Word of God, this book here, and tried to be all that I was supposed to be, and proceeded to forget about education, forget about career, going somewhere, finding the ability, the God-given abilities, giftings that I had, and apply them to trying to be good. And I don't regret a lot of what took place during those years, because most of those years were the childbearing years, and we have some wonderful children as a result. And I look at them, I see the future, and I see the direction they're going now, and it excites me. It gives me reason to continue to push forward. But you and I talked about the years that have gone by, so many years that in so many ways were wasted. They could have been productive in ways that we might not even fathom at this point.
Well, we discussed how being taught certain doctrines, and being indoctrinated just kept us in a little box, mm-hmm. and kept us from going outside of that box to learn anything. So, it handicapped us as far as education, as far as knowledge, because all that mattered was our belief system.
Well, that's what we went after. But where we are now, when you look at the difference, of course, let me state this, because it'll help matters. We're used to having at least one more person here, sometimes two. And Stephen right now is studying, and he's trying desperately to get where he can get in the educational system. And we have, I think we've talked about this before, but we have, what do we have, 4 children, and 2 of their spouses that are all going to school, getting education. And we're very thankful for that. In some respects, it's probably more of a struggle for our children. I know that we handicap in ways by putting their focus on something that really is going nowhere. The more I look at what the church is offering in the way of the now and the future, it takes me back to that time once again. What shifted us, what got us going another direction. And at the time, it was as much what was supposedly coming in the future, which now really is the past, because these things were supposed to have happened before now. In other words, the return of Jesus to judge and to, some think that one day a bunch of people are going to disappear, call it the rapture. And when that happens, all hell's going to break loose, and God's going to begin to pour out all this anger that he's been storing up. And the world is just in for it. Just at any time, because people have gotten so bad. We thought they were bad back in the day of Sodom and Gomorrah, but now they're so bad, he's just going to destroy everybody in a horrendous way and then punish them forever. And now that we have gotten all of that fantasy, all of that superstition, or whatever you want to call it, behind us, when I look at the future, I see something quite different. I see great potential. And so, what a wonderful shift. But then once again, what a waste. And what really motivates me to move forward with the New Covenant group, and I know we have different ideas coming to the table, and I think it's wonderful. I've been enjoying our Google conversations on Wednesdays. I invite everyone to tune in on that. It's just a wonderful time. And we've got several different people bringing several different ideas to the table from all different perspectives. Um, but what I feel like that I can bring to the table to a major degree is the realization that so many people like us are still trapped in their mind, basically. Because one of the things that is really encouraged in denomination, in Protestantism, in Catholicism, is being steadfast, being movable, things of this nature, where we feel like if we deviate in our thought life and even entertain the idea that something may be wrong, for example, that there could be possibly something erroneous here or something in here that is not really God's word, even to entertain that thought could bring curse upon ourselves or could bring calamity into our lives. And, what a horrible place to live. What a horrible way to live. We live there. We've experienced that. And we know that there's multitudes that's where they live until someone rescues them. And Paul actually talks about that, about this rescue mission. But one thing that he points out is that it's for the mature. It's for people who've been around the block, who have some real stability, in some of his letters he writes, the things that you learned from me. And the question is, what have we learned from him? Sometimes when I look back and see what we've learned in the past, I don't think we learned it from him. I think we learned it from those who thought they understood what he was saying. Of our sturdy thoughts that you're about to share. Just be the only one talking here.
Well, we have learned some things from Paul. Thank God. We've come into some understanding that we didn't have before. And it's caused us to free up and to question and to think and to, lay aside the fear of questioning and thinking for ourselves, And it's so much different. Whenever I was young, I've always had bad eyesight. And at one point in my life, I wanted God to heal my eyes, so I put glasses and contacts and everything down. I just stumbled around. It didn't do anything for me. And I remember the very first time I put glasses on, just the tremendous difference that it made. I could actually see that trees weren't just a green blob, but they had limbs and branches and twigs and even birds in it. I could hear the birds, but I couldn't even see them. And it just made a huge difference. And that's kind of what we're coming through now, And I feel like that we're just beginning.
I would say that
we're just now getting to discover what life is about. All of life around me, there's such an excitement and desire to live life to its fullest. I don't know how to put it in words, but you know what I'm saying.
I do. As a matter of fact, it's trying to collect my thoughts because there's just so many things. Once you get the ball rolling, there's just so many things to consider.
It just, it seems like.
Wait a minute, listen.
In religion, not only were we kept in a box, but also in a slumber.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we've stepped out of this box, you just want to pass this on to people and wake them up. You're letting life pass you by. Wake up, you know. And it's so difficult because they feel like that that's where they need to be. That's where God wants them. And it's a difficult thing to get people to see beyond their beliefs.
Right. Well, there's been a lot of talk recently at the New Covenant group about the subjective versus the objective, and mainly dealing with experience. And I love where Dr. Jones went this morning with the Apostle Paul about his very particular subjective experience that he had, as recorded in the book of Acts, on the road to Damascus. And something happened there, apparently. And that's what Paul stated, you know, that, and he describes the experience. And what we have recorded there is that he was blind for a while. Some man, I believe named Ananias, came to him to pray for him and to encourage him. And just to show what kind of individual Paul was, this man was afraid of him. He was afraid to come to him because he had the reputation of being a terrorist against these followers of Christ, whoever they were, whatever they were like at the time. There was a real push to put an end to this thing. They were killing people. And Paul was right there with his instructions, full of the law, ready to obey and to make sure these people ended up dead. And what Dr. Jones was explaining just really set my mind racing as far as the possibilities. Because now this is something I've never heard before, but apparently, and maybe it's attributed to Richard Dawkins, and maybe a lot of people think this way, that what happened to Paul wasn't a visitation from the divine, rather it was a delusional thing that he experienced. And I would have to admit that I agree with what Dr. Jones had to say, and that is that if it's a delusion, then let's all experience this delusion, because if it takes us from being murderers and killers into being someone who can fit the description of what Paul describes about love, to being kind and to being keeping no record of wrong, and all the things that are described in this thing called love. It reminds me, I was thinking about this earlier, you'll appreciate this. The Fiddler on the Roof. Anyone that has seen that, it's an excellent expose of Judaism. But at one point, the main character, Abiar, I think is his name, his young son-in-law suggests to him that riches, that wealth is a curse. And of course, you know, his eyes got real big. And he said, well, if this is a curse, then may I be smitten with it, and may I never recover. Well, I think actually in that case, the son-in-law might have had something on the ball there when it comes to riches. You know, it may be for a few folks, but what we're talking about here is a change of character. We're talking about going from a person full of hatred and murder and so forth to becoming a person who actually cares about his enemies. And there was one who came here, we have a record of this, that he came and he taught us. His name was Jesus, and he taught, you know, I say to you, well, he said, you've heard it said, you know, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Do good to those that despitefully use you. And he didn't stop there. He didn't just teach that and say, this is the way you ought to be. This is the way I ought to be. He demonstrated it. He expressed this kind of character toward those who actually murdered him. And, like I said, when you begin to do things in this way, and we're the ones that are saying, in agreement with what the Apostle Paul taught, that this God lives in each and every one of us. As a matter of fact, it's Ephesians, as we call it. It says, that He is the God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. So, when I look at the world as it is now, I don't see a world that's cursed by God. I'm not looking for a future full of calamity and doom and God pouring out anger that He actually doesn't even have. But I see the potential that we have, because I don't see a person any longer that does not have the potential, the full potential of what happened to Paul. And let me make an admission, and then I want you to talk a little bit. I can't really point back to a subjective experience that anything like that Paul had. I do remember a time when I was a kid that I heard this sermon that scared me. I thought, that if I didn't go do what this preacher said to do, that I was in danger of an eternity in some kind of fiery pit. So I went forward and I prayed the prayer and I followed through with water baptism. And I felt good. I felt good after I did that. Kind of like I felt at a time when I quit college and started serving the Lord. It was a time in my life when I realized mistakes I had made and things weren't going well for me, and I needed an answer. And this seemed like a really good one. And, I find that this religion that we speak of, and some of the a feel-good experience. You feel like you make a shift and you start a different direction. And, I don't think there's an individual that has ever lived that hasn't had some kind of experience like that in their lives. But the question is, does it really change things? Now, with the Apostle Paul, I would say yes. The evidence was all there. But the subjective experience in and of itself is not the thing that does it. There has to be a reality behind it. And I think that brings us to where we are. We are in that search for that reality, in all that it encompasses.
I agree. I was thinking this morning about the conversation I was having with my sister Rhonda. She's a wonderful person and really an encouragement to me. We were discussing just loving people, being there for them, being kind, because of the change that has come about in our life. We just love people. We just want to reach out and share what we have with folks. And it's not like we're trying to change them or get them, win them over to our side. There's not an agenda. It's who we are. and just wanting others to enjoy what we enjoy. And so you're met so much of the time with just anger and frustration and hatred from the people that you're trying to just enjoy. And it can be very painful. You know, those that are close to you that don't get this year, they're very harsh toward you. And it can get really painful, but it doesn't change us back, because we can't change back. What has happened to us is real, and it's enjoyable. I wouldn't want to change back. And there's nothing to do except go forward with this, regardless of who can see or accept or believe, or something has happened in us, and we can't go backwards.
Can I give you a good example of what you're talking about?
Sure.
And, you know, we talk about being honest. As a matter of fact, I like the new name for Wednesday evenings, Cult of Honesty. Call us a cult if you want to, but at least identify us for what we are. We're just those who are being very honest. And I think this would be a good time just to give an example of the degree that we go to. You may know this, you may not, but when we first married and I first met your dad, you know, I was this religious guy. I love God, I love His Word. And I didn't perceive your dad as being anything like that. He was almost the opposite of that in my eyes. And I used to dread when we would go see your parents, because I would have to sit with your dad and pretend like I was glad to be there and try to come up with something to talk about, because it seemed like we didn't have anything in common. And it went from that to, I want to relate this experience because it was so wonderful, so powerful. And when we spent a couple of days out there on the ranch, just kind of away from civilization, so to speak, and I had all kinds of time just to be with your dad. And as we were leaving, and I don't know if you caught it, but I choked a little bit. When I related to you, I said, you know what? This, you know, if you want to think about what heaven's going to be like, I perceive it as being like this, except for the parking. You know, we did not want to leave. I was just enjoying being with your dad, that relationship that we built. And I know he feels the same way. And we're close. I don't know how else to say it. We're just close. We have a good relationship. And it's not built on my religion or the lack thereof or his lack thereof or specifically belief in God, but I know we both consider ourselves to be theists. We believe in God. We don't talk that much about specifically what we believe. We just enjoy one another, appreciate one another, respect one another. And the difference between, as far as I'm concerned, what we were experiencing there in heaven is the fact that in heaven, and this is my perception, yes, we just won't have to leave. There won't be that hurt of saying, you know, we're going to have to be apart. I don't know when we'll get to see each other. And I know that there's a lot of people that can relate to this because, you know, I think about my dad. I think about Brother Sidney. I think about a lot of people that I'd love to sit down with and enjoy right now, you know, or in the near future. But I'll just have to wait, and I don't mind it. And I'm going to go ahead and enjoy as many people as I can when we're still here. And I meet new people. This Wednesday night experience, I probably can't even name all their names, but just to sit in front of the computer and hear their voices and share thoughts, it's wonderful. I feel like I already know them, and we're building relationships from miles away. It's wonderful. And it is a movement. It's something like I don't know that this world has ever seen anything like it. For one thing, we've not had the availability of the internet. And I learned something at my sister's house. She was playing something on the History Channel. It was about the hippie movement. And from what I understand, I could be wrong here, but if I understood it right, we have a couple of ex-hippies to thank for developing the internet system.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah, Steve Jobs was a full-blown hippie. But, you go back to that time, and you get on to me all the time for going back there too much. But there was something that took place back then, and it was more of a search than a discovery. People were just saying there's something wrong, with things as they are, and we need change. And
they were very expressive, that
they have a need for something more.
Right. And I feel like what we've done is we've tapped into that. We've discovered what it is that was missing. And it's this thing that, and I'd like to share this thought also. We can find recorded that supposedly Jesus said, "This is my commandment, that you love one another." And this goes back to what Dr. Jones was dealing with this morning that was so significant to me. If I were to sit here and say, "I command you, wife, love me," and you obeyed, "Okay, I will." And then you looked at the definition and you started trying to do that. We've made a law here, and the law says you have to love me. And so somehow or another, you pretend that you do. There's something about that doesn't even make sense.
Mm-mm.
But when you just love me because of who I am, that's another realm. That's another ballpark. And there's something that we have inside us, and I'm convinced it's in each and every one of us, that when we tap into it, we find it there. It's discovery. And that's kind of along the lines of what Dr. Jones was talking about. The man that we were looking at this morning, the man named Paul, who had this subjective experience, went from one who was all about law, everything was a command, to just getting rid of all of that and saying, we have within us, it has been given us, it's in each and every one of us to truly care about one another, even our enemies. And apparently he discovered that within himself. And that is what he related. I began to look at some of his writings this morning and realizing that's what he talked about. He talked about relationships. He never imagined, it was the furthest thing from his mind that anyone would ever take his letters that he wrote to the people whom he loved so much, and they would call them the Word of God and tell them, do this because this is what God says. He was just writing these letters out of the expression, what was in his heart, the change that had taken place in his life. It was just everything to him. And I can identify with that. But thank God I can't identify with taking this book and saying, this is the law that we must keep. And the new law is love. I've got to try to love everybody. Reminds me of the hippie movement. Frank Zappa. had one of his songs, he had a hippie, what do you call it? It's I can't think of the term for it. The church has them. The statements, anyway, he's vowing a vow, basically, and he says, I will love everybody. I will love the policeman that kicked the shit out of me in the street. So, and it was like he was in a trance when he was saying it, and he probably was, because, the thing was get on drugs and you won't care anymore. But we're talking about something here that that it affects you. It doesn't, it's not you trying to affect it. And that's the difference. So, I don't know. I could go on and on. I want you to talk a little bit before we run out of time.
We've only got a minute or two.
Okay. It's all yours.
It's all right. You're doing fine.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the commendation. But surely you have something to say. I mean, Tina.
Not at the moment.
Didn't mean to call you Shirley. What can we say? It's just good.
It is.
Too good. I think, really, that's a lot of the problem. People hear these things and they say, no, that would be too good. I wish I could believe that. How many times have you heard that?
Yeah.
I wish I could believe there's no hell. Well, go ahead. Go ahead, you can. You can believe that because it's true. I wish I could believe in a love like that. I don't have to. I have it. I enjoy it on a daily basis. It's real. Can you look into my eyes and say, it's not real?
No, it's real.
And it's wonderful.
It is.
Well, if you're not going to say anything else, I guess we're going to have to bring it to a close.
Go ahead.
You do it. You can do that.
Well, we have enjoyed today. We've enjoyed, we appreciate y'all letting us sit here and share.
Absolutely.
And
Hope you hung
we
with
do
us.
truly love you. And just look forward to getting more involved and enjoying this more. Thank you for your time.
Stay tuned to the programs coming up. It's going to be good, as always.